Hi, this is Andrew Groh with the Missouri Society of CPAs. This is MOCPA Bar Talk, where we talk about the latest trends, news, and issues that matter to you the most. Let's get started.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of MOCPA Bar Talk. I'm Andrew Groh with Missouri CPA Society, and today we're here so excited with my good friend and top 100 accounting today CPA, Dr. Stein Smith. And we're going to have a fantastic conversation today around all things blockchain technologies. Again, I'm no expert, but one of my favorite kind of topics and conversations to really get in and kind of geek out about. Dr. Stein Smith, welcome, and thank you so much for coming on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So probably the two most pertinent facts, right, about me are that one, I'm so passionate on blockchain, on crypto, and on all of the opportunities that these technologies and tools are going to unlock for anybody working in accounting, finance, tax overall, right? And then two, in terms of trying to sort of take that out of the your classroom and into the real mainstream conversation, I'm actually on the advisory board of the Wall Street Blockchain Alliance, where I chair their accounting working group, and I'm also on the board of a payments company out there in the marketplace, trying to sort of build that pipeline between crypto platforms, current accounting software, and the firm's name is Gildan. And so those two angles, right? The sort of academic research and the hands-on areas that I'm so involved in really are going through a great period of growth and almost application build out right now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's not even your day job, right? This isn't your day job. So assistant professor at Lehman. Yeah, assistant professor at Lehman College in New York, and tell us a little bit about that. What are your classes like? What subjects do you teach? And kind of tell us a little bit about your students in the program.
Sure. Yeah, so I would say probably the core classes that I tend to teach the most range from intermediate accounting, doing inventory, items like that, to really the advanced accounting problems, where I focus on the hot topics like blockchain, crypto, automation, and then sort of how to take those tools and ideas and then actually have them be used to help folks now and going forward solve the accounting problems, right? How data is analyzed, published, all the rest. And the core students I have are all awesome, first of all, but they're all hardworking. But all kidding aside, the more that anybody, right, me or any other educator, can integrate these hot topics and trends into the classroom, into our conversations, the more engaged I think everyone is.
Yeah, and I do want to get into that and ask, after just a second and really ground kind of viewers the situation we're in. We do want to get into why is that important right now, and that's something we'll chat here in a little bit about. But I did also want to ask, what's it like being a top 100 accounting today influencer? I mean, what an honor, and what's it like? I know you're all over the state society circuit, and blockchain is your expertise. What's that been like?
Well, I mean, it's been a huge honor, right? Being included in that top 100 list with really, heavy hitters, industry leaders, top partners, thought leaders from the East Coast, West Coast, all over the country. It's a huge honor. And two, it's really, I think, a big indication of just how important and how hot topics like blockchain, crypto, everything IT is, right? For everybody in accounting, right? For the audit side, the tax side, the industry side, the government side, it really is a hot topic for everybody out there.
And we want to get into a lot of these really cool topics today. For viewers who may be watching this podcast, we did want to kind of ground everybody into where really we are. So we're about 3.5 to 4 months into the COVID-19 pandemic. And if you're viewing this podcast, it's why we're having this remote conversation. Dr. Stein Smith, I know we had teed up an in-person interview a couple months back when we were hosting a large conference, and that the pandemic has really kind of made a lot of people adjust and transition. Wanted to ground our viewers and listeners to where we are. But I also want to ask you, what are you seeing, during this particular period of time? And before we really get into the core, interview topics, how has the pandemic really impacted you, your students, your school, and then kind of what are you seeing with our profession right now?
So probably the first thing that I've seen outside of obviously all of the impact on healthcare, and I truly hope that everyone tuning in now or in the future is happy, safe, and is being safe. And two, as far as the applications or the impact of it on education and sort of business at large, I would say that honestly, we've pulled forward all of these trends and topics towards working from home, working on the road, teaching online. All of these topics were sort of out there, they were on the horizon, they were coming in 2, 3, 5 years, but they all came in 2, 3, 5 weeks.
Right, like an accelerator, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's honestly been a turbocharging impact. I know they had a guest on one of the business shows over the last couple of weeks, and basically that guest indicated that basically we've sort of jumped ahead to the year 2025, 2030 even, in terms of how the economy is one, currently operating, and two, how it's going to operate after all of this is over, right? Or all of us get more back to normal. So it really has had a big impact. And as far as education goes, all of my classes have been online since the middle of March. And I'm currently actually teaching a class out at OSU, and the whole class has been online, trying to bring that in-person conversation into that online sort of virtual environment. And I know just my anecdotal conversations with my colleagues and friends at other institutions as the fall prep starts up is that really, I mean, this whole pivot to online isn't really going to be going anywhere, right? Online is almost going to become the default, at the very least for the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, and I think all that's consistent with what we're hearing here in Missouri and with our accounting school educators here and talks with AAA and other accounting school organizations and advocacy groups. It's a yeoman's effort, I know, and keep up the great work. And even here still, I think different universities are still trying to put out plans that are safe, best for students, best for learning outcomes, and trying to juggle a whole variety of things. And oh, by the way, trying to maybe teach in an environment where maybe not everybody is super comfortable teaching or learning, and it's got to be challenging.
Absolutely. I mean, and I would say that everybody who I've talked to from the institutional side, from the faculty side, from the student side, staff side, everyone is trying to do the absolute best job possible to sort of bring the in-person experience and all of the course content, don't forget, right? The accounting obviously is our focus, but chemistry, physics, English, all of these things online. So it really is a big uphill challenge, but it is one that everyone is trying to tackle.
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Stein Smith, and it truly is a pleasure to interview you here. And I know that's maybe it's something that we're all trying to deal with and have that conversation with us and for our members and viewers. It's really very powerful. But we're here to talk today about, again, something that if you couldn't tell, maybe I'm a fanboy. blockchain technologies. Let's talk a little bit. That's exactly right. And what you're really known for in our profession is and your expertise. I'd like to, if you don't mind, if grounding our listeners into really the fundamentals of the technology. And again, you were here with us last year for our full 8-hour blockchain conference, which to my knowledge, not many other groups have really in our profession gone that deep yet into topics and conversations like we are right now. Maybe can you ground us in the fundamentals of the technology, and even before that, why is this important right now to talk about and understand for our professions, for accountants and CPAs?
Sure. So I would say why it's even more urgent, right, to have these conversations now is that as of right now, right, all of us are off-site, dogs are barking, all of us are obviously working from home, right, not in an office type of environment. And having dogs bark in the background is fine. But if all of us are doing business, doing transactions, doing deals via Zoom, via Skype, via Adobe Connect, whatever, I mean, all of this data has to be kept safe. Mm-hmm. 1. 2, this whole conversation around 5G, the Internet of Things, automation, cars that are autonomous, trucks that are autonomous, drones dropping off books to college students, to high school students. All of these things and applications that all of us need now more urgently than ever before are dependent on the information being safe, being kept unhackable or almost unhackable. And that's really where the angle that I've seen the most interest in blockchain come in, I'd say during the last half year or so, right? That as all of us are transacting, sending information, packages, and all kinds of stuff, healthcare data, right? Doing telemedicine is a huge area of sort of hyper growth right now. But as all of this patient data, client data, tax data is being transferred over Wi-Fi, over home networks, over corporates and VPNs, tethered onto a home Wi-Fi network, keeping that information safe is core. And so that whole idea, that's keeping data safe, is the core of any blockchain application, any blockchain at all. It can be the Bitcoin blockchain, right, the OG blockchain, or any of the enterprise versions or the industry versions, right, that are now starting to bubble up to the surface. Meaning that at the core of the idea, any blockchain, right, be it public blockchain, private blockchain, all the rest, is to store and to transmit data between members of that network on a continuous basis, and to do so in a encrypted manner. Basically saying that all of us have access to the up-to-date record of transactions, of information, of the data at hand as it happens. And all of us can have confidence that that record is accurate.
Right. Now, hold on a second, Dr. Stein Smith. It isn't blockchain all about cryptocurrency?
Andrew.
Right?
Andrew. If we were having this conversation back in 2017, 1, I would have a different haircut, and 2, probably yes, right? Because in 2016, 2017, it was really all about Bitcoin, all about crypto prices going up, and up, and then all of a sudden going down in 2018. But really, honestly, and there are plenty of conversations going on right now linked to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies out there, right? Stable coins, asset-backed coins, all of that. But the real industry focus I've seen personally, right? Even though I'm elbows deep working with firms, working on sort of taxation questions, all the rest, the whole conversation and focus has pivoted, right? Not only focusing on crypto, but to focus on crypto, but to also focus on the commercial applications, on the enterprise applications to actually get blockchain out of the fringe into the mainstream and to have us actually not have to be talking constantly about how blockchain works.
Yeah, and about cryptocurrency, maybe even specifically. So, are we not talking about cryptocurrency in this podcast today?
That's entirely up to you, Andrew.
And it's, of course, I'm joking a little bit about it, but if for viewers and for CPAs out there interested in really staying on that cryptocurrency conversation and maybe even financial advisors, right, where things are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Our profession, I think, is trying very hard to move away from, maybe not away from those conversations, but deepen the conversations around all these other applications and use for the technology itself. And that's why I love this stuff, is that the new the technology and the application use being used built on blockchain, to me, is almost infinite in its ideation, like where it might go.
I would say that there is still a conversation happening linked to cryptocurrencies, right? I mean, there are the IRS updates from October of last year. The PCAOB issued their sort of comment letter on how to possibly do an audit with a blockchain or other crypto assets, and the AICPA just, I believe, in June of 2020, published their sort of non-authoritative practice aid, right? Building on their earlier work linked to auditing of the crypto assets. So, I mean, all of those conversations are certainly happening, right? But as far as the industry at large, right, the blockchain, so crypto asset space, yes, the conversation has pivoted, right? Now, it hasn't changed altogether, but it's pivoted more towards those applications.
If I'm just exposed to blockchain technologies, or I'm listening, to this topic for the first time in this podcast, really, can you give us like just a 2-minute overview of how it works? Like, where do I go to buy my blockchain? It's
Sure.
A joke, right? Like, how do I join the blockchain? It doesn't really work like that, but how does it work?
Yeah. So it would all come down to what you wanted to actually have the blockchain for, right? So if you wanted to have Bitcoin, then you would be by default a part of the Bitcoin blockchain, right? But if you're working at an enterprise, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're a CPA trying to get into sort of the blockchain space, trying to offer those advisory services, tax services, all the rest into blockchain, I would say really the first question to ask is, what blockchains do your actual clients use? Are they of a bigger blockchain? Right? Are they already part of a consortium using the IBM Hyperledger suite? Are they part of the blockchain being rolled out at JP Morgan? Are they part of the blockchain being rolled out at Walmart? Are they already a member of one? And so then that sort of answers that question for you. But in terms of sort of where to buy your blockchain, there is no place to actually buy one. It would honestly boil down to one, sort of what you want to actually do on it, right? Do you want to learn? Do you want to practice with a sort of code, play with it? Or are you trying to offer advisory services?
I think, at least in the kind of the mid-range conversations that we've had, those conversations have really kind of gone into two different buckets for CPAs. One being, how do blockchain technologies, both now and in the future, impact, say, public practice, audit, tax, accounting work? And the other set of conversations go really towards maybe CFOs, controllers, financial professionals who are CPAs in business and industry space, maybe even government. And they seem to be two very different conversations, especially when it comes to application and use. Can you share your thoughts a little bit about just a high level where those conversations are right now in those two different buckets?
Yeah, so I would say, as far as the impact of blockchain or the actual conversations in the public side, it's honestly focused on tax and audit, right? The advisory arm is always there, but the biggest developments and applications have been in the audit and the tax side. One, because we finally have some new updates out of the IRS in terms of the tax treatment. Now, obviously, those updates also created some new questions and some new gaps too, but sort of that at the very least gave us, right, the baseline to actually offer tax services and to hopefully actually answer some of those tax questions. And the audit side is very, very interesting because there is no authoritative guidance, right, as to how to audit blockchain, right, how to do it the right way. But there are some other sort of non-authoritative things being published right now. PCAOB has begun to ask the questions linked to it. So I would say that right now, and there are some excellent tools out there. The Big Four obviously have their own in-house tools, but I would estimate just on my anecdotal conversations, any of the top 25, top 30 firms have some sort of blockchain analyzer, blockchain audit tool already up and running.
Cool.
But it all comes down to, are they actually using that in the audit process at that enterprise level, or is it still at that pilot testing?
Right, and we'll go into these a little bit more, more deeper here in the next segment here. But for CFOs or financial analysts, FP&A.
Forgot that part. Sorry, Andrew. Yeah, I totally forgot that other part. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the impact that I would say is honestly bigger for CFOs, treasurers, finance VPs. I would say that that's really bigger because that touches on a much wider area, right? Right, then only audit, then only tax. Because if you're the CFO or the director of finance, controller, all the rest, you oversee everything, basically. Right. The IT budget, from purchasing, supply chain, accounting, finance, benefits, HR, all of those applications are actually much broader and are, I would argue, at the very least, moving faster to the mainstream actually being used. So yeah, I mean, I would say that arguably between public and then industry, right? Industry being, corporate, nonprofit, and sort of government, I would say that the applications and the speed of those applications is actually bigger for the folks working in industry.
Which of those segments is kind of the leading the application and use, pulling application and use up for the entire ecosystem? Mm-hmm. Are they the business and industries who are building and maybe not owning is the right word, but building the blockchains for the applications use that they need, and then CPA firms plugging in there? Or are they CPA firms in the audit and accounting space saying, hey clients, these are things that you really need to pay attention to and perhaps build out? Or is it a conversation that matches both of those right now? Where do you see that?
Personally, right? And I think if you asked 100 people, you would have 100 different answers on this. I would say that just me personally, right? Just again, from my conversations, anecdotal evidence, that the folks in business and industry are probably a bit more out front in terms of building out, developing, and actually using blockchain applications. And that makes complete sense, right? Because obviously audit firms, tax firms aren't going to be worried about how to audit a blockchain until it reaches commercial enterprise use at their clients, right? So it makes total sense. But obviously all of us working in the space are, educating ourselves, building out blockchains, trying to get our arms around how to audit, how to sort of work with this thing. But I would say that the business and industry folks are probably more out in front by the very nature of working in business and industry versus only working in audit.
Especially for our CPAs in the advisory space and public practice, what an awesome opportunity
absolutely.
to bring this conversation to your clients and and provide some guidance and show the way on potential application and use. Awesome.
Absolutely. And to just add on just one little point there, Andrew, it's always important, I think, to fully understand that all of us are in a bubble, right? I'm in a bubble. All of us are in these bubbles talking constantly about blockchain and crypto and audit and all of these nuances and applications. Most people aren't as obsessed with this topic as I am, as you are, as the audience is. Yeah, right. And so it's really important to have those conversations to make sure that your client, be it a internal colleague or an external client, is aware of sort of blockchain and crypto and also sort of where it's going, right? Because I do think still a big chunk of the overall business population still has this mindset of blockchain stuck in 2017, 2018. It's up to us to really sort of bring this education is sort of a ambiguous word, but this thought leadership, there we go, to our either internal partners or our external clients.
These conversations for this interview so important, and that we continue these types of conversations and kind of proliferate, right? And share these ideas and conversations with CPAs everywhere. Well, let's get to the audit of the future. I mean, wow, what a cool topic, and blockchain technologies, of course, underpinning that potential and what we're seeing right now. This is not sci-fi, right? Blockchains, of course, are out there in a variety of different ways. And as you mentioned in your introductory remarks, where are the assurances there that not the individual transactions are happening correctly? That's what the blockchain is for. But is the blockchain set up right? And is it set up appropriately? Maybe can you share just a little bit about where we are as a profession there and where you think we're heading? And I've got a couple follow-up questions there too, because this is a super cool topic.
No, and so I would also add in, right, that the individual transactions that happen correctly on the blockchain don't actually mean that those transactions happened accurately.
Right.
All that means is that those transactions operated and were completed in accordance with the rules of the blockchain. I can have something in there saying 2 + 2 = 5, and I can have that transaction in there incorrect, but it happened in accordance with the blockchain rules. Can everyone see that? Is every member of that network actually given equal levels of access to that information? I would argue no, right? Because and I'll use an example that everyone knows. If I'm Walmart, right, and I have this blockchain where everybody who does any business with me linked to any sort of fresh produce has to use my blockchain. And their timeline probably got sort of pushed back, obviously, but it was originally going to be, I think, by the end of 2021 for anybody doing any fresh food. Okay. So not everybody who's on that blockchain needs equal levels of access, right? And the health inspectors, OSHA people, auditors, all of the other external agencies that Walmart deals with don't need equal levels of access. And so all of that sort of building on, right? Are the individual transactions actually happening correctly on top of happening in accordance with the rules of the blockchain? Is the blockchain itself being built out, coded, debugged properly, and then sort of 2A, who is doing it? Who is doing that? What are the controls in place? Obviously, right now, in the bigger picture point of view, there's a lot of backing and forthing between us and some other countries about hacking and all the rest. So, I mean, are there controls in place on the actual building out of the coding actual language? And then 3, do those members of that blockchain have the correct levels of access, right? So if I'm a audit firm, I probably don't need access to every single piece of information every single day, right? I'll do periodic work still. I'll still show up for the annual audit, and I'll always be analyzing certain high risk, high profile, high sort of trouble spot areas, but I don't need a total access to all of their internal data at every possible moment, right? One, just from a data privacy point of view, but also from a business point of view, right? How do I analyze all of that information? And so in terms of blockchain being onboarded at an enterprise, I would say that really the individual transaction level, the actual coding level, and the access level are the three biggest areas that are both, headwinds, obviously, but are also opportunities for firms who are educated in these areas and can then better inform clients to make better choices.
So is this the core of the value of CPAs and the audit of the future? What does that audit, what might that audit look like? What are you hearing? And I think you mentioned that the AICPA does have some guidance now.
Not guidance.
Perhaps not authoritative,
yeah,
but guidance.
Yeah.
What are you seeing and hearing, and what does the audit of the future look like for blockchain systems?
Sure. So first things first, the audit of the future looks a lot different, right? A big chunk of the audit work that happens right now, and I mean no insult to any of the entry-level auditors, because a big chunk of the audit work, the actual time that happens, are confirmations, doing inventory counts, confirming receivables, cash, doing bank recs, account recs. If you're all hooked up, right? So if I'm audit firm A and I have all of my clients hooked up to my blockchain, we all have access, or I have access to that information as it happens. I'll have access to their cash records, to their outstanding APs, to their ARs due over 100 days, right? I'll have access to all of that. So all of those sort of base level tasks that are important now aren't going to be as important going forward because of how the blockchain works, because of that sharing of information on that continuous basis. And so I would say really that the biggest add-on or the biggest increase in work and in scope of the audit is an audit of the future is going to be more focused on the IT side of things, on the cyber angle of things. And then also I would say part two to that, outside of the cyber IT, it's going to also be, how do we make this new technology, this new complicated tool work in terms of the business processes, right? Are those business process owners informed, aware of, and able to use the blockchains correctly, right? Those on-ramps and those off-ramps are almost always where the hacks, breaches, and errors happen, not on the blockchains proper.
And if let's say I'm an auditor right now and trying to wrap my brain around this conversation, in other conversations, and I think we've had this conversation before too, Dr. Stein Smith, is what we're talking about here, does it look and feel, the principles involved in this type of audit of the future, is it tangential? Does it feel like a SOC 2 cybersecurity audit? Is that what we're talking about?
I would say that there is going to be more of that sort of SOC 2 angle, right? And I mean, that actually makes total sense. If you're automating more, if you have more IT stuff integrated into how the business operates, then it makes perfect sense to say, okay, fine. If I'm trying to audit or to attest or to offer assurance over this information over the business enterprise, then it makes total sense that audit is going to shift more towards that SOC 2 control cyber angle. Absolutely.
Thanks so much for that. And I know we want to get to some of the really cool new kind of what we're seeing application and use for, but real quick, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the AICPA has some guidance, non-authoritative guidance out on that right now.
Yep.
I noticed that just recently, within the last couple of months, the AICPA has also published some guidance on supply chain management considerations for CPAs. Perhaps not on the audit side, but are we getting close there? If you're familiar with that, can you share a little bit about what you may know on that front too?
Sure. And actually, the ICPA is currently working on a course linking a blockchain to supply chain services, angled for CPAs. So I mean, on top of that guidance, there actually is a course in the pipeline right now. And Andrew, what I would say there is that sort of that even having that conversation at the AICPA level, having them publish that information is indicative of the topics you and I are already talking about, because the idea of a supply chain usually brings to mind desks or oranges, right? But the idea of a supply chain is much broader, right, and includes everything now. Hospitals have supply chains, but they have physical ones and they have more virtual ones. And so every industry now is more and more linked to that sort of virtual way of doing business. And as that becomes more and more mainstream, it is going to be important from that sort of virtual supply chain point of view to be able to, at the very least, have a conversation as to how to attest or to offer assurance on those types of information, from everything from intellectual property, royalty payments, anything to do with that has a very tangible impact on the bottom line, is then linked now into that broader supply chain angle.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I'm smiling here because my mind goes to what another awesome opportunities for CPAs to really kind of grab a hold of these new application and use and be, client service, advisors, develop, services around supporting those clients. And then also on the client side, some new considerations to think about, hey, we've got some great resources now on how CPAs, finance departments, FP&A groups can really look at supply chains now and with best practices perhaps in mind, start getting on blockchains and linking those technologies together. So awesome. And with that, a great segue. Maybe can you share a little bit with our listeners, and I love talking about this stuff, some of the really cool maybe industry use cases that you're seeing right now, and with an eye towards the future. Where do you see some movement in, whether it's healthcare, whether it's supply chain, whether it's something that we haven't even talked about yet, or at least I haven't seen? Where are the cool new applications and use coming from?
Sure. So I would say the best way to start that conversation is to ask, have either of us used TikTok?
I have
You
not.
have not. Have you?
My kids have.
Right? Right. You've heard of it, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I would say that TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, all of these live streaming services, right, or online services like Netflix, Hulu, all of those are going to have a big impact on how business models operate, right? So just in the case of a new platform, and there actually are firms out there right now in the marketplace that are developing and have developed online movie platforms, music platforms for indie artists running on a blockchain, right? Tokens as a part of sort of how the business operates, right? You would invest or donate whatever, $10, and for those $10 you would get 20 tokens, and for 8 tokens you can upload something onto that platform, right? And all of that, I think, is a huge area that's not really being talked about right now. It's constantly talked about on Bloomberg, Fox Business, whatever, with the FANG, right? Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, all the rest. But in terms of sort of how it's going to impact one business and to how blockchain is actually used going forward, it's a huge new area and an area that I think is really exciting and interesting because going forward, right, as we move on from platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch, and as new blockchain-based companies pop up in this space, right? They already are, but as more of them pop up, and as more of them go mainstream, and as more individuals, clients, institutions are more and more used to using platforms with tokens, with blockchains, how is all of that information going to be protected? How is it going to be audited? How are the content creators actually going to be compensated accurately, right? There are already countless arguments with companies like YouTube and Twitch over compensation. Can I post a video? What happens if I get demonetized on a platform? Actually, just in July of 2020, there was a purge underway at Twitter, purging bots and all the rest. And so then how is all of that going to evolve going forward? So probably the most mainstream application of a sort of internet search company running on a blockchain with tokens is the Brave browser, right? Meaning that it's an ad-free online way of going online, right? And it's ad-free, one, because it runs on a blockchain. It won't harvest your information, and you have the option to actually buy tokens and to earn tokens on that platform. So all of that is, one, cool, right? Fascinating stuff. But it's also going to lead to, I think, some big questions as to, okay, fine, we have all of this data and compensation, and we have tokens and cash and other IP out there. How do we handle all of this stuff, right? So just a very basic question, how is this going to be shown on the balance sheet of a company, right? I mean, because right now the answer is obvious, right? Because all of this information, these uploads, these online streaming things are actually monetized by the parent company. Mm-hmm. But if the company is running on a blockchain and operates in a more decentralized manner, there is no parent company. And so who owns that IP? Who is entitled to actually have that compensation? And then how is that compensation going to be shown if it's in the form of tokens versus cash, or cash versus tokens? So right. All of that, I think, is a fascinating area, because it builds on sort of what all of us are actually living through right now, meaning more online, more streaming, more sort of virtual stuff. But then it also brings in the blockchain sort of crypto conversation too.
Yeah, and this conversation reminds me of one I think that you and I had last year at the blockchain conference, and it was a conundrum at the time, I think, where maybe in a similar vein, the idea, if people are familiar with online gaming, mm-hmm. and somebody if you play a game, ostensibly there you may be able to acquire something that actually may have real value in real life.
Sure.
And a kind of a funny kind of story. Let's say you're in your game, you acquire some battle axe, right? Mm-hmm. And you want to sell that to somebody for real money. Is it a similar type of situation where how do you take something that maybe that is equated to a token and then sell it to somebody for real cash? How do you trace that? How do you track it? How do you account for it? Where does that money go? All those types of things.
No, and I mean, and I would say that really sort of that's almost sort of the part two of this conversation, right? Sort of as we conduct business in this sort of virtual way, right? Uploading videos, getting tokens, earning income that way. Also, then, as we sort of move out of the online only, right, to the in-person world, how do those two worlds interact, right? Because obviously, right, there's a whole industry on you gaming, buying stuff in the game, upgrading, and all the rest. But sort of that whole conversation about, okay, fine, so we're earning stuff in the game, and it has tangible value, and I know it has value because there are 20 other companies doing this. So I know it has tangible value, but then how do I export, right, this online value into tangible goods? And then how does that work? Then how does the custody work? How does the valuation work? And then how does that impact me from a earnings point of view, right? Do I have to now have it booked on the income statement as online AR or as online unearned revenue? I mean, how do I do that? And then adding in the idea of sort of tokens being earned adds that whole extra layer, right? Are those tokens able to be valued? Are they actually traded outside of that gaming ecosystem or that online streaming ecosystem? And if they are traded, are they on platforms? Are they on venues that folks here in the US can actually use? Meaning it can be traded elsewhere, overseas, but if there are issues with that nation in terms of data privacy, all the rest, is that valuation actually valid? Or is there a impairment then that then has to be taken on those tokens? So all of these are absolutely fascinating questions for sure.
That's not Dr. Stein Smith. That sounds like a great case study question, end of the semester test for your students. And I'd like to hear what their thoughts are on that one, because I'm sure you'll get 30 different types of responses along the line.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's cool. And there are there's some other really neat application use out there. B&I, we talked about supply chain, especially. Healthcare is an interesting one. Don't need to go there now. But I did want to ask, switching topics real quick, to talk a little bit about this technology and what you're teaching your students. For CPAs of the future, they're in your hands right now, right? And the curricula of accounting schools like Lehman College and others. Why is this important now? What are you teaching your students on the fundamentals here in the intersection that they will need to use as they walk into their firm or business to really maybe even lead the conversations at their new companies? What are you teaching and where is this heading?
Sure. So the areas that I always try to focus on, I would say it can be summarized in three broad areas. One is that it's not coming, it's here. It's already being used. Forbes publishes their top 50 list annually of actual companies using blockchain as a part of their actual business. It's here, right? So it's here. So all of us have to know at the very least what it is and how it works, right? Two, it's going to impact every aspect of the course content I teach and the course content of every other business class being taught, from econ to finance, management, marketing, accounting, obviously. Every topic, every facet of accounting, markets, and business is already being impacted by this technology, both blockchain and crypto. So all of us have to be on top of that, right? I mean, we have to know these things. Our clients don't come to us because we have nice ties or we have nice hair, excellent beards, items like that are going to come to us because we know stuff they don't know, right? Our clients are experts at their industry, at their business, at their customer retention, acquisition. That's great. Our expertise is to help point out things that can help them make better business choices. That's it. And if we don't know arguably the biggest ground-changing technology from a data management point of view in the last 20, 30 years, what value are we actually offering?
But Dr. Stein Smith, and I know we're looking to wrapping up the interview here in a few minutes. If we would have rewound this conversation 15, 20 years ago, what we're talking about teaching, and when you were teaching your accounting school students, this is squarely in the computer information system space. if we would rewound this conversation 15, 20 years ago, would we have been eager and moving, building skill sets and merging these two, even professions, if you will? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you give us your thoughts on that. And then, are we seeing an acceleration of merging technology and technological skill sets with our accounting school students in our profession, or are you seeing a more gradual kind of implementation there?
Sure. So I would say that if we go back in time 15 or 20 years, I would say that we would be having I would argue the same kinds of conversations, but around PCs, the internet, and sort of how to manage data in an online-based environment, right? And so if I go back to 2007 even, the iPhone was only then coming out.
Right. And
that one piece of hardware has changed business for all of us. Airbnb, Uber, everything has changed because of that one piece of hardware. And so I would say that, yes, going back in time, 10 or 15 years, we actually were having these same types of conversations. But to answer part B, it's so fast now. Everything is being pushed forward so fast. Firms are being sort of dragged forward into 2025, 2030 because they have to be. Right? Because all of us have to be more comfortable working in a online-only environment and to have the competency to actually do our jobs, our attest, our tax, our advisory jobs in a business landscape and in an environment that I would argue that by 2023 is going to look completely different than it did in 2018. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say that obviously while every institution is different, every educator is different, I would say that there is at the very least, a awareness of the urgency that has to be sort of put into building out these topics and core ideas into courses now and going forward.
And I think that's perfect. It's consistent with what we're hearing with, again, conversations with AAA and accounting educators here throughout Missouri. And just a quick observation, I think different curricula are in different places now. So we're starting to see in some of our institutions here, even accounting school students learning Python, which goes a little bit beyond awareness into being able to actually code and build this technology. I'm just wondering where things end here, which is, and that's where, are we seeing really a convergence of skill sets here, or a blending or a collaboration?
Mm-hmm. So what I would say there, Andrew, is that I've seen that too, and I've heard that's sort of underway, and anecdotally, I've also seen it. But I would just say that one, that is awesome, right? Coding, learning Python, new information isn't ever going to hurt you, right? But I would just urge just a note of caution, right? There's a whole field of coders, programmers already out there who are in school full time for 4, 8, 12 years earning PhDs in this stuff, master's degrees in this stuff. So it's awesome to know it, to have that base knowledge, to feel comfortable, to have those conversations, to ask the questions of those experts. But at the same time, to actually not lose sight of the core competencies and expertise all of us have, right? From a accounting, finance, tax point of view, from a business management point of view, almost, if you're working in industry, all of that is the true value that our clients hire us for, right? If they wanted programmers, they would hire programmers. And if we have so that base level programming expertise, all the better. but our expertise is elsewhere. And absolutely, there is a convergence happening, but they are going to still be two separate fields, albeit closer than they have been.
Appreciate the kind of the 10,000-foot view. And we interviewed our friend Dr. Seifert, who that's what he does. He and his team at Providence University Computer Information Systems, and he actually had a very similar viewpoint and conversation there. And it's really great to hear educators with similar kind of philosophies and viewpoints where, some cross-pollination is good, but let's not lose sight of the core learning and value and skill sets in these different sciences.
Yeah.
So thank you for
absolutely.
that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I got one more question.
Sure.
And before we wrap up, maybe a little fun. Dr. Stein Smith, are you Dr. Blockchain? Tell us a little bit about that. Well, can we just dispense with the pleasantries here? And are you Dr. Blockchain?
Well, I mean, I've been called that before, yeah. And I guess after being called that a few times, I actually went ahead and I actually ordered myself some merchandise labeled Dr. Blockchain, polo shirts, and some hats. So yeah, figure might as well own it, right?
Way to go, Dr. Blockchain. I think that's super cool. And really on behalf of our profession, thank you so much for your thought leadership, for really being a champion and a kind of a pioneer for bringing these conversations, not just here, but you're all over the place. And I want to say thank you so much for that.
Absolutely, Andrew.
Do you have any other kind of follow-up thoughts? I know if listeners are kind of hungry for more, a couple quick things. I know we've invited you to pen an article for our journal coming up, and then also for anchoring a presentation at one or two of our upcoming conferences. But if folks want to learn more, get a hold of you, what are some of the best ways, or what other things or resources would you point folks towards, especially CPAs, if they're interested in more on this topic?
So I would say that the best way to get a hold of me is obviously online, right? I'm on Twitter at Sean Steinsmith, LinkedIn at Sean Steinsmith. So I'm always online posting anyway. So if you want to get a hold of me, those are probably the two best ways to get to actually do so. And as far as where to learn more, I mean, there's a lot of thought leadership out there, right? The AI CPAs, obviously, the top-notch CPA.com, WSBA, Wall Street Blockchain Alliance, and then just more anecdotally, if you're interested in sort of blockchain applications and trends, more focused on those real operational stories, CoinDesk.com is a great website. Cointelegraph.com is a excellent website. And then more for like an overview of how blockchain is actually being used by enterprises in the actual world. IBM has a fantastic website of resources, information, articles, and actually hands-on sort of practice tools for individuals, be they college students or current people out there who are interested in sort of that more hands-on approach to it. So I would say that those are the areas where I would start. There's a lot of good thought leadership out there, but just a quick note right here. As always, it's important to always take any information, thought leadership, or content from a private company who is trying to push their own service or product with a grain of salt too.
A small grain of salt or a large one, Dr. Stein Smith? Yes.
Big grain of salt.
Big grain. The indomitable Dr. Sean Stein Smith, thank you so much for being a big part of MOCPA Bar Talk. You are welcome anytime here in Missouri, and I know, thank you again so much for all of your thought leadership, and all the best to you.
Absolutely, Andrew. Thank you so much for having me and for having this sort of more comprehensive conversation on blockchain.
Thank you so much for watching. Please comment below if there are topics you would like to see us cover, and make sure to subscribe.